years ago or so, FarmShare partnered with the United States Attorney's Office to do a study to find out whether or not putting food into a high crime community consistently, week in and week out, having reoccurring food distributions or outlets of food to get to that community, whether or not it would have an effect on the crime rate in that community. And so after a year of gathering data and providing food consistently to these high crime communities, we found the answer was yes, that in fact, providing them a staple of life, which is food, it did reduce the crime rates in that community. But a byproduct of that study or that kind of experiment was that we found and we utilized law enforcement as the face of these food distributions in these high crime communities. And what we found was that even more so than reducing crime, but the biggest benefit was the community relation building between law enforcement and the communities they served. And so all of a sudden those communities that had typically shunned law enforcement or viewed them as the enemy were all of a sudden starting to more embrace the law enforcement community. They were having dialogue, they were communicating while they were in the food line, while they were picking up food. They started to see law enforcement as not just a negative thing, but actually a positive thing. And it's been a very successful program that we've now launched, from a pilot program 4 or 5 years ago to now almost statewide, where we're working with Sheriff's Office, we're working with the local police department, the community policing organizations, and we're working with them to go into these communities and help them bridge the gap between law enforcement and the communities they serve. And I think you see some of that, during this last year or so. There was a lot of civil unrest, there was a lot of conflict between law enforcement and some of these communities, but ultimately you see all that Florida had less conflict than some of the other states across the United States. And I think a lot of that has to do with the program, has to do with FarmShare's facilitating this program over the last 4 or 5 years and helping to build those bridges between those communities so that when there was concerns, there was able to be some communication, and so you didn't have quite the same outlets as you might have had in other cities. And I think that's been beneficial, and I think that program will continue to be successful going forward into the future.